Felt it before. That sense of being on the brink, the edge of breakthrough, the doorstep of peace, of love, of understanding. Just one more insight, one more habit, one more healed wound. Then you'll arrive. Then you'll finally be whole. But the arrival never comes. Or if it does, it vanishes as soon as you try to hold it, like mist escaping your hand, like a word you were just about to say, but forgot the moment your lips parted. Why does the feeling of almost there linger like a ghost on the path of growth? This episode begins where your striving ends, not in resolution, but in the riddle that Zeno posed over 2,000 years ago. If you're always closing half the distance, can you ever arrive? Zeno's paradox wasn't just about motion, it was about desire. The arrow that never reaches the target might just be the soul forever chasing the image of itself. Let's take a breath and begin again, not from the chase, but from the place where stillness stirs. Imagine a version of yourself, the one you've been reaching for, wiser, kinder, fully present, fearless, healed, a version of you just ahead of where you are now. You can almost feel them, almost touch them, almost be them. But somehow, that version always stays a step ahead. Each insight brings relief, but also reveals another layer. You clear one wound, and another emerges. You forgive one person, and suddenly you remember a dozen more. It's as if the closer you get to being whole, the more infinite the path becomes. This is the paradox Zeno named but never resolved. In a world where every step is divided into more steps, where the journey splits infinitely into subtler movements, how do you ever arrive? Now apply that to healing, to self-understanding, to love. If your inner growth is always measuring progress, how far you've come, how far left to go, then you've entered Zeno's trap. You've become the arrow frozen in flight, never touching its destination because the destination keeps shifting forward. This is what it feels like to live in pursuit. To chase arrival as a promise always postponed. But what if the problem isn't the path or even the distance? What if the illusion is in the premise itself, that there's somewhere to get to? Here's a radical idea. What if your healing isn't a line but a circle? What if your becoming is not a journey outward, but a deepening inward? And what if the very idea of almost there is the thing that keeps you away? Pause here, not to figure that out, but to feel it. Feel the tension in your chest that says, I'm not enough yet. The subtle ache that believes peace is after the next goal. The whisper that says, I'll rest when I arrive. That whisper is ancient, but it's also a lie. Because the self you're chasing doesn't exist in the future. It exists in the silence between steps, in the breath you're holding now, in the place that doesn't need to arrive because it never left. Zeno's arrow isn't wrong, but it's incomplete. It divides space, but forgets presence. It calculates distance, but not intimacy. Because in the heart, time bends. The moment you stop measuring, you arrive. The moment you stop chasing, you become. The moment you stop trying to be the future version of yourself, you remember who you were before the chase began. And that memory isn't behind you or ahead of you. It's here, quiet, waiting, whole. Let's go deeper into the trap of almost. You see, almost there is not just a feeling. It's a framework, a worldview disguised as motivation. It tells you that you're progressing, that the journey is noble, that with just a little more effort, you'll become the version of yourself you long to be. But look closer. There is no finish line. There is no final thought, no ultimate breath of enlightenment. Because the self you're chasing keeps reinventing itself in response to the chase. It's a mirage made of your own striving. This is why Zeno's paradox feels so familiar. His arrow doesn't just fail to reach the target, it's designed to never get there. Because in a system that always breaks things into smaller and smaller pieces, completion becomes impossible. You're never fully healed. You're never fully present. You're never fully you. Because the mind keeps measuring your now against a fictional then. Even your moments of joy get dissected. You're laughing with someone you love, and then a voice says, remember this, savor it, don't lose it. And in that moment, joy becomes a memory in the making. You're no longer fully in it. You're watching it from above. This is the tyranny of the almost self. It tricks you into believing that real life is just around the corner, that presence is waiting on the other side of some inner milestone, that the next book, the next retreat, the next insight will unlock it all. But what if the lock was never real? What if you're already the one you're trying to become, but your mind, like Zeno, is caught in infinite subdivisions of not quite yet? Let's challenge this illusion. Close your eyes and ask, what if I stopped improving? What if I stopped fixing, healing, striving, just for a breath? What if I simply stopped? You might feel a wave of panic. The voice might scream, "But I won't grow." But growth is not the opposite of rest, and becoming is not the opposite of being. They are part of the same unfolding. You're not a broken system that needs endless upgrades. You are a living rhythm, a pulse that includes both expansion and pause, insight and stillness. And here's the secret. Some of the deepest healing doesn't come from moving forward. It comes from collapsing the illusion of distance altogether. Zeno's paradox was mathematical. But the heart doesn't obey math. The heart obeys presence. In presence, there is no almost. No trajectory, no division, no final arrival. There is only now, only breath, only being. When you touch that, even briefly, the loop breaks, not because you solved it, but because you stopped believing in the loop at all. This isn't passivity. This is power. To choose presence over progress. To choose here over almost. To choose to stop measuring the distance between you and you. Because the space you thought was a gap is actually depth. And depth doesn't require movement. It requires surrender. To stand still, not as stagnation, but as sacred defiance against the myth that your worth lies somewhere else. Zeno tried to show us something profound. That motion is never as straightforward as it seems. That arrival might be a mental construct. That the space between here and there might be a trick of perception. And the heart already knew. It's always known. That love doesn't arrive. It emerges. That peace doesn't wait. It's remembered. That the self isn't found at the end of the road, it's the road itself. There's a moment on every seeker's path when the question arises, not how do I get there, but where is there really? And more importantly, who told me I wasn't already there? This shift in inquiry is subtle, but seismic. It cracks open the very structure of your inner journey. Because if your idea of growth is built on the assumption of lack, then even your progress only reinforces that you are not enough. This is the heart of Zeno's emotional paradox. It's not just about an arrow in flight. It's about the part of you that cannot sit in stillness without narrating your trajectory. It's about the part of you that feels guilty resting because something inside whispers, you haven't earned it yet. This voice isn't evil. It's scared. Scared that if you stop moving, you'll disappear. Scared that if you stop becoming, you'll fail. Scared that without the story of almost there, your life won't mean anything. But what if meaning isn't in movement? What if the arrow doesn't need to fly? What if it can simply be held? Let's bring this down from the abstract. Think about how often we say things like, I'm working on myself. I'm trying to be more mindful. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting close. Harmless, right? But layered underneath those words is a framework of delay, a postponement of permission. You don't let yourself fully breathe, fully trust, fully soften, because you've internalized a map that says the destination is somewhere ahead. That's Zeno's trap, spiritualized. You might meditate more, journal more, listen to podcasts, read books, go on retreats. And yet, that subtle ache persists, because the sense of self that you're feeding is still based on the gap. Even your awareness becomes a performance. You start narrating your own growth as if you were being watched. Look at me letting go. See how I surrendered? Notice how evolved I've become. It's not vanity, it's dislocation. You've left the experience itself and entered the commentary loop. You've become the arrow mid-flight again, always witnessing yourself from outside, never arriving fully in. But the heart doesn't care about commentary. The heart just wants to feel, to be held without agenda, to be loved without progress, to be seen without the distortion of becoming. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing to grow, you grow. The moment you stop trying to arrive, you arrive. Not because you achieved presence, but because you stopped resisting it. This doesn't mean you abandon your practices. It means you untether them from punishment. You no longer meditate to fix yourself. You meditate to remember yourself. You no longer journal to escape pain. You journal to companion it. You no longer strive to improve. You live to express. This is what Zeno's arrow never knew, that some things are beyond motion, beyond distance, beyond calculation. That love isn't something you reach, it's something you release into. That presence isn't earned, it's inherited. That you don't become enough, you are. There's a sacred moment, just after the striving softens and before the self tries to pick it up again. It's the pause between steps, the breath between thoughts, the stillness that asks nothing of you. This is where presence lives. Not in the climax of your journey, but in the forgotten interludes. Not in the triumph of breakthrough, but in the surrender of effort. Not at the top of the mountain, but in the moss beneath your feet. Zeno's paradox was a warning and an invitation. A warning that the mind will always find new ways to postpone arrival, and an invitation to discover a way of being that doesn't require a finish line. Because here's the truth. You are not a project. You are not a goal. You are not a linear ascent from broken to whole. You are a rhythm, a dance, a wave that rises and falls and rises again, not to progress, but to express joy, to express ache, to express silence. There is no arrival because there is no endpoint to being, only moments where the illusion of distance disappears, and what's left is the raw, quiet beauty of now. Let this episode end not with answers, but with presence. Breathe. Feel the version of you that thought they had to keep moving. Now, let them rest, not because they've earned it, but because they were never separate from wholeness in the first place. The future you isn't ahead. They're here, in this breath, in this pause, in this paradox. And when you live from that place, not measuring, not striving, you begin to notice something strange. The joy you thought was almost there is already humming under your skin. The peace you thought would arrive after healing has been sitting quietly in the corner, waiting to be acknowledged. The self you thought was incomplete was only hidden behind the story of pursuit. So let the arrow fall. Let the watcher rest. Let the journey soften into a spiral, not forward, but inward. And when someone asks how far you've come, smile gently and say, "I'm already there." Because you are. Not in theory, not in potential, but in presence. In the soft, immeasurable now. In the space that cannot be divided. In the paradox that holds you like a mystery and loves you without needing to solve. This is Zeno in the heart. This is the end of arrival, and the beginning of something deeper. You. Next time on the Quiet Paradox series, we explore the ship you keep rebuilding, identity through change, Theseus, memory, and you. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious. If this stirred something inside you, subscribe, like, and share this with a fellow seeker.